Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, from the United Kingdom, CNBC presenter, Hadley Gamble.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome all of you to this very exciting CNBC debate. We're going to be talking about Egypt's energy equation. We're going to be asking tough questions about whether or not private investors in this country are getting what they need from the government and whether or not they are getting what they need fast enough. But I want to introduce our first guest, Bob Dudley. He's the Group Chief Executive of BP. And we'll be sitting here talking about the new investment that BP has made into Egypt, as well as what that means in terms of the energy equation. Bob. You're here. We're playing musical chairs. So, Bob, let's talk about this investment in Egypt, $12 billion, very exciting. You're expected to add thousands of jobs. You're the largest foreign direct investment in the country. You're clearly buying into the president's plans for Egypt, aren't you?
Well, that's right. We've been here for 25 years as a company. We've operated continuously over 25 years, not without a single stop. We have made a decision, not an easy decision, but we made a decision to invest $12 billion in a project to develop gas off the West Nile Delta. And Hadley, it should bring first gas in 2017 and increase the gas production of Egypt by 25 to 30%. And Egypt needs gas, it needs power. And I think the time is absolutely right. When you come to the conference like this, you can almost feel the economic engine of Egypt starting to rev up, and we're very, very, in a humble way, very pleased and proud to be part of that.
Talk to me about the energy equation, not just in Egypt, but across the region. Some exciting changes. There's some serious buzz around this idea of a pipeline from Russia via Turkey, and perhaps some positive signs now in Iraq as well. Where are the opportunities here?
Well, as the previous panel talked about the importance of Egypt, it really is a linchpin here. Egypt needs gas, it needs energy. It's the largest market in the Middle East. There are many things happening right now. Gas out of the southern corridor, the Caspian to Europe. LNG is moving around, becoming more of a commodity. But for the purposes of today's panel and Egypt really is a linchpin for the Middle East. And if Egypt can't meet its own energy needs and needs to import, it's going to be disadvantaged. And the discovery of these resources is fantastic for the country.
Well, I think everybody in this room would like to know your short and medium outlook for the price of oil. Where are we going? Are we going to see 25? Are we going to see 100 again?
Well, the world has been, it's a world of luxury. We've been in $100 oil for 3 to 4 years, and quite frankly, the world got used to it. The cost structures were high, the taxation was high. That's an unusual period. We're back into the normal world of volatility of oil and gas prices. We're down now today, as of Friday, $54 Brent, $44 in the United States. This is a huge shock for our industry. Cost structures are going to have to move and change. Taxation is going to have to move and change. It's going to be very painful. And if you look at the transfer of wealth in 1 year, it will be about $1.6 trillion will transfer from oil and gas producing areas to consuming areas. So depending on where you are in the world, this is great. But anything that happens that fast can have unintended consequences.
Talk to me a little bit about that volatility, though. I mean, how difficult is it to make long-term investment decisions?
Well, the volatility of this means the oil and gas industry and maybe the mining industry are two of the longest wavelength industries in the world. So we've got to make decisions today where there's no revenue for 7, 8, sometimes 10 years, like the West Nile Delta. So you have to make decisions, prioritize on where you think there's confidence that you will get a reasonable rate of return on these big bets, essentially. So many companies, including us, are reducing our capital, shifting activities out in time till we're clearer. But it should be a huge sign for us that we've made the decision this year to commit to this big project in Egypt.
And so how do you apply that logic to Egypt specifically?
To make you have to have a market, you have to have the resources, but in our business, you have to have the above-ground factors that allow you to make these investments. And we've seen in the last year, and particularly in the last 3 or 4 months, the term that many people use in Egypt, we can see the red tape being cut. So we have gone through some very complex agreements that we believe are secure. The attitude, the flexibility, the negotiations, which have been tough, with many partners and government, have got an outcome that is quite outstanding. And to make that decision in 2015, in a year where we're not doing that in many other places around the world, again, should be a signal about the changed business environment in Egypt.
So they say they're open for business, and you believe it. You're here.
You don't commit to $12 billion unless you believe it.
So I want to ask you. I want to ask you about BP's own fortunes in Russia. Your partner there, Igor Sechin, is highly geared, and there are questions about whether he's going to find financing. You know, in terms of what's your message to investors about the situation in Russia?
Well, BP is nearly 20% shareholder in Rosneft. I'm on the board of Rosneft. I think it is responding like oil companies around the world, reprioritizing its capital spending, reducing it, focusing on what it's good at, its cost structures in rubles as opposed to dollars. So it's cushioned more than people would expect from it. But like many countries, and I'll just name some that I think are going through quite a bit of stress: Russia, Angola, Nigeria, if you're in Calgary in the United States, if you're in the North Sea, these areas are going through a lot of stress because they rely on oil and gas, and Russia is certainly one of those. And the uncertainties created by the tensions between Russia and Europe are most unfortunate, and I'm hoping that clear heads prevail and this situation settles down, because quite frankly, Europe can't afford to do without Russia, and Russia can't afford to do without Europe, most certainly.
We have many of our friends from the Gulf states visiting Egypt. They're keen to invest in this country. They're already here as well. What are the message are you getting from them in terms of the oil space?
Here or in the Gulf states?
In the Gulf states.
In the Gulf states. Well, the Gulf states have some of the largest oil fields in the world. There's now more oil in old reservoirs that is yet to be produced through new technology than actually exploring in deep water and new reservoirs. So great resources across the Gulf states. We're a huge investor in Iraq. We provide a lot of needed capital and funds into the treasury there, but of course we're in a business that takes those risks and works in those circumstances. And the Gulf is certainly also a region open for business. Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Oman, these are just a number of the countries where there's a lot of economic activity. But we don't shy away from that in the oil and gas business. So.
Bob Dudley, thank you very much. We're going to move on now and introduce some more of our distinguished panelists.
Great, thank you.
We're standing. They may or may not be joining us, quite slowly. I think all of our names have been moved. Bob, if you want to move this way.
Okay. Always the logistics thing.
It's always the killer. I've noticed that there hasn't been too much coffee to be found in the room. I want to start with Nassef Sawiris. You are the CEO of Orascom Construction. I want to ask you about the movement that we've seen by the government over the last several months. We've seen a great deal of movement to cut subsidies. Do you think that they're moving fast enough, and what does it really mean for you as a private investor?
I think on the Ministry of Electricity side, they've moved extremely fast. They have made a transformation, a new electricity law that was signed recently by the President, which separates electrical distribution from power generation. This is a huge milestone. I'm talking about the revolutionary new power sector law that was recently passed by Ministry of Electricity and was signed by the President, I think, 2 weeks ago. So this law finally separates power distribution from power generation, and virtue by this new legislation, you are allowing the private sector to participate in power generation in a much more seamless way for the consumer the consumer's relationship with his power provider has not changed, so he will not see private sector power generation. He'll continue to work with the same entity, but allows for multiple power projects to proceed. And I think you'll see during the course of today, many of those being announced as a result of this new legislative change. On the petroleum side, there hasn't been any legislative changes, but we are promised by the minister that he's about to announce some breakthroughs there that will enable private sector participation in buying directly from the major companies, natural gas and products, and create a sort of a marketplace that is attractive for them to invest and for the industrial users to have a guaranteed source of energy.
So they're moving, but are they moving quite fast enough?
I think on the side of the Ministry of Petroleum, there hasn't been any legislative change as fast as what the Ministry of Electricity did last week. And that is the next thing that we hope once it will open a lot of investment opportunities, including in receiving terminals for LPG, more imports, more direct contracts. I'm sure BP would love to have multiple buyers rather than one buyer. And Egypt has a unique opportunity is that there's a lot of natural gas that is found in places like Mozambique and all this. Egypt, you do not need to worry about monetizing that gas. You have 100 million people, you have a gas shortage in the power sector, you have 3 LNG trains that are idle right now, so this can be used for re-export to Europe. So that's a great opportunity, and it needs a little bit of legislative changes to really make that proceed.
I want to bring in Ahmed. Heikal, Ahmed, you're planning on investing millions in natural gas grids. Just in terms of where the country should be going at this point, I mean, shouldn't the country be a net, it shouldn't be a net importer of gas, should they? I mean, how close are we to seeing a change there?
Hadley, we are in the middle of a transformation of the energy sector in Egypt. I think the old regime is being changed into something that is being born. And anybody who thinks that the subsidy system that has gotten us to where we are is going to continue, I personally don't think so. If somebody thinks that natural gas can be bought at $8 and sold to consumer at a lower price, I don't think that the Egyptian government can afford that. I don't think it can happen in the power sector, that it costs the government, even in the most efficient of power plants, 7, 8 cents. I don't think that they can sell it at below that. So this system of this subsidy-based system can no longer continue. It is incumbent on us to try and think about what will the future look like. In my view, there are 3 elements of the future. The first one is based on clearing price of energy, meaning that energy is available at a price. What is this price? That we can debate, but it is something that is not acceptable, as far as I'm concerned, to have energy shortages. The second thing is that I think there is going to be substantial investments in upstream oil and gas once there is a clearing price. And the third element is the issue of renewables and how we encourage renewables to the forefront. I think this new system that is being born in front of our eyes will unleash a second and a once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity in the energy sector in Egypt. Whether it be in LED bulbs, whether it be investment in efficient refineries, whether it be natural gas grids to home on a massive scale, whether it be power investments like what OCI is doing, and many other people are going to announce similar deals. I think there is something that is new that is happening in Egypt, and the amount of investments, the magnitude, the size is going to dwarf anything that the government is going to talk about. I think it is going to be on a massive scale. I think negative interest yields are going to play a significant role. And I think that the future is being shaped now, and I think it's a bright future.
Philippe, I want to bring you in as well in terms of Total, in terms of the investment opportunities you see in Egypt. You've been in this region for a while. What are you guys looking at right now?
Right now, we are present in 3 areas. We are restarting to explore in the east of the Nile Delta. It's still a small operation, hopefully much bigger in the future. But what we really recently made 2 years ago is acquire the distribution assets of Shell and Chevron, and we have created the second largest distributor, international distributors in Egypt. So basically, we showed trust, and we showed trust in the country, and so far, 2 years after that, we have not been disappointed. But apart from what we did, which is a sign of trust, we would like to do more. Right now, we are creating about 10 service stations per year. This is 1,000 jobs, and we would like to do more. And to do more, not only we need this clarification that you alluded to, but we also need some administrative simplifications. To create one station, we need 41 stamps. We need access to land, and we also need to be able, in order to invest more, to be able to pay dividends in hard currency. And I think in our activity, if those 3 things could be eased, we would be ready to create twice as much jobs that we are creating today.
Now, full disclosure to the audience, we were supposed to be joined by the Minister of the Minister of Petroleum and the Minister of Electricity, and they seem to have had a meeting with the President, so they weren't really able to join us, so hence the musical chairs. But in terms of what the bigger questions are right now, it just seems to me from listening to you guys talking about this, we have private investors wanting to do more in this country. We have outside external BP, Total, trying to change the energy equation as well. It's just really a bigger question about how quickly the government can move and what more you need from the government. Philippe?
Well, there is another aspect where the government is moving, and is moving quickly, and we see that as an opportunity. We have invested in the solar energy. This is not very well known, but you may have heard of this plane Solar Impulse, which is going around the world. They have solar panels which are our panels, because this technology that we acquired is one of the most efficient, and we are ready to invest more even in the solar field. And I think that beside what is going to be done in the upstream, which is very well known, and where we believe there are opportunities and new oil and gas to be discovered, beside this distribution business, which we'd like to grow, diversification in renewables is really an opportunity. And I think that the scheme that has been put together is a scheme where we feel comfortable to be able to invest more.
Now, we are joined now, of course, by the Minister of Electricity and Energy. Thank you so much for making it. I know it's a tight schedule, but we were waiting for you. We've been having a conversation about the energy equation in Egypt. We've been talking about how we can make that energy equation more efficient. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys are doing to make it easier to operate in Egypt, because one of the biggest things that many people are worried about in terms of the political scene even are further blackouts and more strife in that sense. So give us a sense of where Egypt is today.
Let me tell you what happened actually during the last summer. Actually, we suffered a lot during the last summer from some shortage of electricity, and this was mainly because of 3 main subjects. One of them was, the first is the shortage of gas, because shortage of natural gas. Most of our power station was designed to work mainly with the natural gas, and once you use different types of prime fuel, it has a great bad effects on the power stations. So actually, the shortage of gas caused us about 2,000 to 2,500 megawatt loss during the last summer. The other thing actually is and this was mainly because we depended to a great extent on the natural gas and the heavy fuel oil and the light fuel oil as well. Almost 91% of our power generation was coming from this part. The other thing actually is the power losses in the transmission as well. And the third one is mainly because of the inefficiency of some of the old power stations. And because of that, actually, we had to do a major changes in all of the looking to our energy mix in this. Energy mix now is introducing a lot of renewables. And because of that, we produced a law for the incentives in the investment in the renewables. We did the feed-in tariff, which was very attractive. And even when we called for participation in this scheme, we received almost 187 applications from all over the world to participate in this scheme. By perhaps at the end of this month or beginning of next month, there will be the final power purchase agreement bankable and already produced by an international consultant, Fitchner, to make sure that it is real bankable and it's going to really to enhance the and accelerate the operation in the using the feed-in tariff and do the power generation. We are estimating actually about 2,300 megawatt from the solar and 2,000 megawatt from the wind to be applied for the next 2 years.
So, Mr. Minister, can you assure Egyptians today that this energy crisis
Yes.
is in hand?
Sorry?
Can you assure Egyptians today that the energy crisis they've been suffering over the last couple of years is in hand?
It is actually, I'll let you know actually that during the last couple of months, we managed to contract 3,600 megawatt for the first time in our history in Egypt, that we could manage to do this and to be installed within 6 months' time. And it is actually, we are following this project, and it will be finished in time before the summertime, and it will make a lot of relief actually from the suffering which has been done during the last summer. In the same time, actually, we are expecting that the imported LNG will be coming by the next month. This month, we have the regasification chip to be available here. And so the security of supply and the presence of the extra power production turbines will be there. So I believe that the situation will be far better than the last summer.
Some positive signs there, and bring it back to Nassef. Are we seeing what we need to be seeing from the government's side?
I think on the electricity side, as I mentioned before, they have done in 7 months transformation legislative change. They've done everything that could be done. They've moved to a lot of opportunities with the bankability in mind. That's a new mindset that no longer are they demanding a wish list that becomes impossible for bankers to finance. No, they're sitting for the first time with bankers and lenders in mind, and not only the investors. So from the electricity sector, I think, I hope the Minister of Petroleum follows a little bit the roadmap that was done by the electricity in terms of the need for some legislative changes. We cannot stay with the same legislation that was built on and unchanged for many years. And some of the structural changes also. I mean, we have separated the petroleum production sector from the gas sector. That's unprecedented in the world, that you have e-gas and you have EGPC, two different bureaucracies that added to the bureaucracy. I think that should be revisited. Was it a successful experience? BP doesn't operate this way. You produce oil and gas with one organization. That organization has created, I think, is partially responsible for some of the declines, some of the slowness in investment in the gas side. I think there has to be a mechanism to allow, to encourage the oil and gas majors that there is a pent-up demand. Today, a short gas position is a powerful position to be in. There is a lot of natural gas in America. There is a lot of LNG coming in Australia and America later this year. 2 LNG trains in Algeria are being commissioned right now. So this is a great opportunity. And the gas fields in Israel and in Cyprus, we are a few hundred miles away from these gas fields. The no-brainer as the end destination of those huge finds is to connect them by pipeline to our existing short position in Egypt, get the 3 trains of LNG up and running. These 3 trains to rebuild would cost today about $16 to $18 billion in replacement costs and will take 5 years to build. They're ready and waiting for this gas. So some legislative and a bit more of the acceleration of those changes, I think we can have a revolutionary sector, and it will also encourage more investment, just like what BP did. It will encourage others.
So what about those resources in Israel and Cyprus? I know that there's been some pushback within the government as to going ahead with that. How close are we? Could we see that happen?
I think we have to wait till after the elections in Israel, but I think they have distracted a lot of interest in the gas industry in Israel by imposing, doing the mistakes that a lot of countries forget. You can't change rules in the middle of the way. And so I think the next step for Egypt would be actually Cyprus, and Israel will have to wait as the next possible step. But the Cypriot gas, the logical home for Cypriot gas, it's about couple of hundred miles to 80 miles away from the LNG trains that are in Damietta and in Edku. So connecting those gas fields with Egypt is a no-brainer. It's the most economical solution for Cyprus. They don't need to invest $6 billion to monetize the gas that they found. It's approximately just over $1 billion for the pipeline. And I think there is a lot of appetite from international donors to finance that pipeline. We had assurance from the EIB this morning that they're very interested in financing that pipeline. So it's also a European security issue. You will have 3 trains of LNG that are facing Europe and are ready to supply Europe with the additional gas. And that could be a very good balance for whatever dialogue is going on with Gazprom.
I just want to mention that we are going to now be joined by our other 2 guests who are a little bit late. Apparently they had a meeting with the president, so we can forgive them. So they'll be joining us at some point on stage as well. And here they are arriving. And Philippe, I do want to ask you a question I put to Bob a bit earlier about the medium to short-term medium outlook for the price of oil. What's your bet?
The bet is that for sure it's going to stay where it is right now because the global world is oversupplied. Now, how long is it going to take to go back up is precisely where the uncertainty lies. I don't think anybody has the answer. What is new in this crisis is that, as opposed to other crises that has been either oversupply crisis or lower demand crisis, this time we have both. We have both a lower demand coming from the whole planet with a lower growth, and we also have an oversupply which has surprised everybody because nobody could have believed that the US oil shale production should have increased at that speed. And the combination of 2 makes this crisis a little bit more severe than the others. So what all the oil companies are doing is slow down their investment in order to be able to accommodate this new situation. And we'll see how long it's going to last. But that's for sure not an easy, it's more difficult than in the previous crisis to go back up. Now, to what price we will see, it will depend how the costs are going to move and how long it's going to take. So it's much more uncertain than all the crises that we have faced before.
I want to bring in now the Minister of Petroleum. We've just been hearing from Philippe his outlook for the price of oil. Now, of course, low oil prices are good for Egypt. How does that play into your plans to scrap subsidies by 2019? And are you moving quickly enough, do you think, with the infrastructure development that you need?
First, we have a 5-year plan for to address the issue of the subsidy. And the first phase was implemented back in July 2014. Of course, we had an estimate, a preliminary estimate for the subsidy in the fiscal year 2014-2015 for about 40 billion Egyptian pounds. we were able to reduce it with the measures implemented to 100 billion. However, due to the current situation in the international market, we trust that we are going to end this fiscal year with 75 billion Egyptian pounds. But this should not really stop us from continuing working with our plan for the subsidy, because the current situation and the current prices is not sustainable for over 2 years, perhaps. This means that we have to address the issue. We have to continuously monitor the issue of the subsidy and keep an eye on it. On the other hand, talking about the infrastructure, infrastructure starts with the ports. Ports, pipelines, storage, refineries, and even the marketing issues. I trust that we have started to implement new projects in the infrastructure. In this conference, we are offering a number of pipelines as an investment opportunity. We have a project that is working with the private sector in Ain al-Sukhna for a storage of LPG and gas oil. We are upgrading our refineries in Midor, in Alexandria. We are upgrading our refineries in Suez. We are offering even opportunities for investment to upgrade our existing refineries. The reform is not only limited actually to the infrastructure. We would also address the issue of freeing and opening the market, specifically for natural gas. So we have established a shadow regulator, and we should be able to have an independent regulator within 6 months or so. This will free the market. We will have shippers, we will have consumers, we will have upstreamers, and this will help really secure the market and give an opportunity for the investors to work freely and to avail the required quantities of gas for the industry and the power generation.
Now, Sami, I want to bring in you as well, because BG, of course, has been operating in Egypt for many years. Talk to me about some of the obstacles that you face. And we're not just talking about repayments here. I mean, we've got several companies in a queue waiting for repayment. Those have begun, but they're not, of course, complete. What are some of the challenges?
So I'd like to talk a little bit about our role, and I think it's the role of all the team here on stage in Egypt. I think we're here because we fulfill two roles. Our first role is that of a strategic partner for Egypt. We've been here for a long time. Others have been as well, both private sector as well as companies, IOCs like ourselves. And I think it's important that we fill the role of that strategic partner by showing people here that it was good to invest in Egypt. It has been good, and it will be good. So I guess a message to the people here in the crowd. We have a booth outside. Other companies do too. Please pass by us. We are next to the coffee shop, so you'll hear some good things, but maybe you might get a good coffee as well.
Is there coffee in the coffee shop? This is our big question.
Close by, anyway. But I think if I would look at the sort of the challenges and the opportunities, because they're two sides of the same coin. I think we start with reform. I think the government has taken really very bold steps, starting steps in reform around the subsidy. His Excellency the Minister touched on it a little bit. This is something that has not been done in Egypt for, well, I'm not going to tell you for how long, because then you'll know my age, but my age and more. I think that's very bold. The tax law, the investment law, these are all excellent initiatives, I think. I think we would be looking, and investors would be looking at what next and pace. So how are these subsidy reforms going to continue? And maybe a challenge, not maybe a challenge, but something that I think the Minister, we speak about it often, is the idea of direct sales between producers and consumers. I think this is very, very important. It will slow or remove time from development, which is really one of the challenges facing Egypt today. And I think that's something that needs to come in the next in the next stages of reform. I'll talk about investment. We've been a bit long-term investor in Egypt, 25 years, $14 billion. Tomorrow we'll sign with His Excellency the Minister the next stages of our development, so we'll be investing another $4 billion in Egypt in the coming 2 years, which I think will help, again, increase the production. But again, one of the maybe obstacles or challenges, I would say, is a revision of the gas price. I think we need to attract more investors to Egypt. It's not just the BPs, the BGs, the ENIs, and the companies that are here, other investors too. They would be investing in Egypt as opposed to other places in the world. We need a return and a revision of the gas price, and I know, again, His Excellency the Minister is working on that. One point I'll talk about is opening the infrastructure from a regulatory perspective. We've worked in BG, we built actually an infrastructure that is it's the size of, for those of you who know Alexandria, it's 3 times the size of Alexandria. For those of you who don't know Alexandria, we built a pipeline from here to Athens, just kind of rather big. By the way, you should know Alexandria, maybe. But it's quite a big infrastructure, and we've opened that to BP, to other operators, and that facilitates or speeds up the development. I think one angle we need to work on together is opening this infrastructure or thinking of Egypt as a regional hub. How can we open the infrastructure to gas discovered in other parts of the Mediterranean, outside the Egyptian borders, and bring those benefits to Egypt? I mean, it needs a bit of regulation. And then one last point, which I think is quite important, is demand. You know, the issue of energy, increased supply, lower demand, you know, kind of basic. I think in Egypt we really need to do an effort on rationalizing the consumption of the resource. It is cheap. You can say subsidy will help that. But we're in places like this, you know, the air conditioning is, you know, going full blast. We can all afford to get it a little bit lower. We can all afford to conserve. We can all afford to learn from the Japanese experience post-Fukushima. So, you know, really 4 points around reform, around investment, around the infrastructure, and around the rationalizing of demand. I think there are opportunities and challenges that we need to address.
And on that note, I'm so afraid we're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. I'm being rushed to another interview. Unfortunately, I want to thank everyone for joining us on this very special CNBC debate on the Egyptian energy equation. And I want to thank our distinguished panelists for joining us as well. Much appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes this morning's programs.